Hello, Korea's viewers. Greetings from Jeju-do. I am Mark Tedo, and we are here on Jeju Island, which is internationally known probably to many of you. Maybe you visited before. These days, I think it's trending as the location for the Netflix K-series Our Blues. And today, I'm here to meet a very special person who has worked hard throughout her career to spread awareness about Korea and Korean culture long before we ever had words like Hallyu or Korean Wave. So I want to give a warm welcome to our Ambassador for Cultural Cooperation, Son Jie. Ambassador, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Mark, and nice to meet all our viewers.
And I feel that we have so much in common, a shared love for spreading Korean culture. So I think I would have that feeling like we've been longtime friends, even though we just met.
We just met.
Yes. So, Jie, you are famously known for being the first CNN Seoul Bureau chief. I know you started as a New York Times correspondent and then grew with CNN to become the youngest CEO of the Korean International Broadcasting Foundation, Korea's only English language broadcasting station, Arirang TV and radio. So hard to sum up the long and illustrious career in one sentence, but yeah. Did I get most of that right?
All throughout my career, it has been a communication role between Korea and the outside world.
And so you're very familiar with today's setting where we're talking about
Yes.
Korea and Korean culture in English.
Yes, this is what I do. This is what I do.
So is it true that there were no CNN correspondents in Korea when you first joined CNN?
CNN usually, unless it is like their regional headquarters, really don't have more than one correspondent in a region. That was the norm.
Right.
But it does put a lot of pressure on your shoulders,
Right.
And it is a huge responsibility.
Right. You're letting the world know about Korea.
Yes.
And you're one of the only voices
Yeah.
to do that.
And so if you're not there,
Right.
there's a chance that they will not know. You remember when 1999 and 2000, the millennium?
Yes.
And so CNN was doing a worldwide coverage of every region they had correspondents in, the ringing the bell, Y2K scare, if you remember that.
Yes.
And but I was on maternity leave because I just had a baby. But I knew that if I wasn't out there
Right.
talking about how Korea was ringing in the new millennium, then Korea would be just skipped over.
Right.
And so, in the middle of the winter, within about, I guess, 2-3 weeks after having my second child, I was out on the street, with the crowd, watching the new millennium happen. So it's a responsibility,
Right.
and I don't take it lightly. I feel that, they could get news, but they wouldn't get it from a perspective I feel
Right.
that as a Korean, I can provide.
Right. A lot of the news when we tell a story, this happened in Korea today, it comes with the role of a lot of contextualization. We have to put the context of Korea in people's minds first, right?
Yep.
And so, I think back to the first news stories I used to watch about Korea when I was in the US. And a lot of times you have to start with that intro of what is Korea and where is Korea,
Yes.
I think a lot of times these days, I hear a lot of the news anchors starting with, Korea is one of the most digital and well-connected, internet societies.
Yes.
And so they'll start with these lines of contextualizing Korea for us. In those days, how did you find yourself contextualizing Korea?
But in my days, in the 1990s and 80s, Korea was quite a different country.
Right.
Digital is now what you would associate with Korea. At that time, it was North Korea.
Right.
At the time, it was protests, demonstrations
Right.
on the street. So, for example, if you were doing a North Korea story, it would always be the context of that would be one of the most fortified borders in the world,
Right.
or a country that is really in which the war is not technically ever over.
Right.
These days we're in a whole different world in which
Right.
digital, in which culture, in which Korea is a very different Korea than it
Right.
was back then.
So there's this evolution, which I think tracks with your career as well, in how we introduce Korea and how we think about Korea. So to that point, I think you reported from Korea for 25 years, and you had the long, illustrious career with CNN, but then quit, I believe, CNN in 2010
Yes.
to become a spokesperson for the Presidential Committee for the Seoul G20 Summit.
I had, Korea at the time was North Korea,
Right.
it was demonstrations. And I did a lot of that. And I felt like the country that I was living in, South Korea, and south of this peninsula, was doing amazing things. It was developing in a wondrous way, and the world was not paying attention.
Right.
So I felt like maybe it's time for me to start participating in the effort to get this side of the Korean Peninsula better known to the outside world.
Right. I think that's
and to make up for the bad things I said about whatever I said before.
And now in your current role as a ambassador of Korean cultures, can you tell me about that role and how you think about it and how you approach it?
Well, it is an ambassador for cultural cooperation, which is a part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it's not from the Ministry of Culture, which is, I guess, gives it a different perspective. If I was from the Ministry of Culture, it would be pretty much promoting Korean culture for Korean cultural sake. I think when you're approaching it from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're talking about bringing Korean culture into the realm of diplomacy so that you connect with the world on Korean culture. I think what my role is to bring those people who are interested and who really love Korean culture to let them know and get them to love Korea.
Right.
As a result.
The starting point is probably also very different from your CNN days. And by starting point, I mean people's base knowledge of Korea globally has gone way up in the recent years, right? And so that they're asking more questions and deeper questions, right?
Yeah.
And so they already have seen something of Korean culture, maybe from BTS or Korean dramas. Right.
What can I do to make that people, that group of people know why the culture they love is a reflection of what Korea is?
Right.
Because, you can love BTS,
Right.
but not necessarily Korea.
Right.
But, the world that BTS comes from, the world that Squid Games or, Parasite or any of the Korean dramas, Our Blues comes from, is uniquely Korean. There's something uniquely Korean about the environment in which all these cultural products are come out of. I feel that my responsibility is to explain a little bit of that.
Right.
And I'm also in the process of learning that myself. It's like a spirit, the Korean spirit of really, there's a freedom, there's a vibrancy, a defiance,
A passion.
a passion
Yeah.
of Koreans that really fuels all of this. And I think the world is just starting to learn about that.
Right.
Why Korea? What's happening? Why is Korean content so popular? And so they're looking for answers.
Right.
And so I think that is my responsibility. And I feel excited about that aspect.
Right.
A lot of responsibility, but excited at the same time. So Mark, I've been told that not only do you love Korean culture and do a lot of really important work, but you actually live in a hanok, the traditional Korean house.
Yes.
What did you find, fascinating about Korean culture?
Yeah, I was blown away, I think, the first day I came to Korea. Everything is new, and so everything is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And so I would just walk down just any random alleyway in Seoul, and there'd be those, floor after floor of neon signs and restaurants and billiards and pool halls and PC bang and everything. And this is amazing. Like this is, to me, it's this precious culture that I just wanted to dive into, right? I just came to Seoul to work, and I found a little apartment in the beginning, and I went to my office, and that was my life in Seoul. It was much later, it was a few years later, that I first stumbled upon these traditional homes. And I thought, this is amazing. And I think that's the reaction to most foreigners when they finally encounter this, is this is beautiful, this is amazing. And then I kind of made the decision to try to live there.
Yeah.
But then once you live there, every day, this encounter with the house is showing you new things about Korean culture that you never knew before.
Huh.
So I never thought I would study Korean traditional culture. I never thought I would study Korean traditional art or instruments or music. But just by virtue of living in this space, every day it's like a new discovery. You know, you open a door and there's a new piece of architecture that you hadn't thought about before. You look up and you think, oh, the roof of this house is very unique. Why did they make the clay tile roofs of Hanok like this? And so I start to study. And so you go back, and I started to learn about, you know, Korean pottery and Korean traditional furniture. And so when I sum it up to people, I say, this house was just a first encounter. It was a starting point that took me on this journey into Korean traditional art and Korean traditional clothing and Korean traditional instruments. And it was just this gateway that opened up to all these things, right?
That's amazing. In a way, that's what Korean culture right now, in terms of the movies and the K-pop, is providing.
Right.
It's giving them maybe the world to delve into a culture of a country, or to know a country
Right.
that is entirely surprising and has a lot to offer the world.
As far as I know, Professor Joseph Nye at Harvard,
Yes.
who first established the concept of soft power, evaluated Korea as a soft power powerhouse. Do you also view this Hallyu phenomenon having an effect on strengthening Korea's soft power?
Professor Nye's theory is this: that you need, the culture, and Korea definitely has that. You need the values that support this culture. You need a country that has, or the group that has this culture, to live up to it. And Korea has all these things. Remember when President Yoon went to the U.S.?
Yes.
And he was with President Biden, and he sang American Pie.
I was pretty impressed.
I mean, come on. I mean, of course they had, wonderful things, the Washington Green and all that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when you ask, American people, what do you remember President Yoon's visit? If they ever saw that YouTube video, that's
Right.
what they would say.
Right.
A Korean president singing American Pie, which is like the most typical, American song that you
Right.
could ever think of.
Right.
So that is sort of the bond.
Right.
I think that countries can form
Right.
based on culture.
So I know you had, after your time at CNN, published a book, Sonjie CNN Seoul, which I think was your tagline as you signed off from your
Yes,
reports.
it did.
Right? Now, later in your career, at this point, if you were to write another book about yourself now and your work as you promote Korean culture, what would the title of this book be?
I think now, if I was writing another book, it would be something that's directed to an outside audience. So I don't know. I mean, Sonjie Korea style, because I love the Gangnam style. I believe in the Gangnam style phenomenon.
I think it was very instructive and inspirational to hear about your illustrious career. I take a lot of inspiration from you as, maybe in Korean I can say 선배, as someone who has a lot to teach me about how I can continue to share Korean culture. So thank you for sharing that, not just with me, but with all of our Korea's viewers. Should we sign off with that kind of famous tagline? Would it be today, Sonjie Jeju?
Sonjie Jeju, yeah.
Yeah.
Sonjie, Korea's Jeju.
Yes.
Yes, there you go.
And I can also do Mark Tedo, Korea's Jeju. So thanks for the time with us, and I hope all our viewers continue to tune back for more great contents from Korea's. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Jie.